Well, hello there, everyone. Thank you for joining us again today for part 3 in our first series of Learn from Home While You Work from Home tips and tricks. Today is office tips and tricks. We'll just go ahead and get right into our presentation here today. So sit back, relax, maybe grab some hot cocoa. We'll do this campfire style, I guess. Hope everyone's doing well. On the line here with me today is my colleague and friend, David Gersten. You probably saw some emails from him inviting you to this session and our other sessions. David is our strategic engagement manager. He's going to help manage the question Q&A and make sure that we keep everything on track for us today. He's an extremely impactful member of the International Association of Microsoft Channel Partners, the IMCP. And much like most of our team members here at Dynamic Consulting, a very active member in all of the user groups from Dynamic Communities. That's GP, Finance and Ops, Business Central, you name it. Myself, I am Sean Dorward. I'm the practice manager here for our SMB side at Dynamic Consulting. You can reach me via email, you can tweet me, you can Facebook me, you can follow me on my personal blog site, lifehacks365.com, where I write about tips and tricks for this type of stuff, just things that I've learned from working with great customers throughout the space like yourselves. And I try to do my best to share them with everyone because I know when I learn those things, it makes a big impact on my efficiencies throughout the day. Plus, you know, it's always great to save yourself a little bit of time and feel more like the office champion, right? Also, I do have a podcast. If you like podcasts, random stuff, MBS podcast, my good friends Mark and Belinda, we talk about Microsoft business and stuff. A little bit about Dynamic Consulting, who is hosting our webinar today, and thank you to our team for unanimously voting to continue this webinar series. It's had such tremendous success. We're going to keep doing this. We're going to do our best to stay motivated through this COVID situation. Here at Dynamic Consulting, we service and support all things in the Dynamics 365 ecosystem. So you may have heard of some of these. It's Business Central or Navision, Dynamics GP, Power BI, Sales for CRM, all of the cool stuff that falls under that single ecosystem, Dynamics AX and Finance and Ops. As things are commonly being changed names over time, but they're falling in line under the Dynamics 365 umbrella, and we service and support all of those. In addition to that, what I mean by that is we're a Microsoft partner, so we offer consulting services to help implement and upgrade and train and utilize best practices, and we also are a cloud service provider and last and certainly not least, a Microsoft Office provider. So if we can ever help you with any of those things, those are the cool stuff like Outlook, Excel, all your Office 365, or now naming, I think the name is changing to Microsoft 365. But check that out. Be sure to check out our website. So how did we get here in this webinar series? This is round 3. This is as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. We got together and we said, well, we're not a group of medical professionals, so we want to stay away from that and let them do the great job that they're doing, but how can we help? And this is one of the ways that we came up with that maybe we can help folks around the space and around the globe. Literally, we've got so much great feedback from this webinar series, which is so empowering to us because we feel like we're making a difference, and we hope that you're learning a few things along the way. And maybe as you learn, if you're like me, learning helps keep me motivated. So this was the last of our first initial 3 webinar series, but please stay tuned. Check out our blog site to see more. Add David Gersten to your Safe Send recipient list so you can stay up to date on what is coming down the pipeline for us in terms of a free webinar. So thank you for your attention, learning a little bit about us. We're going to get right into it today. We have several tips for Word, PowerPoint, Outlook, and I have some bonus Excel tips. Now, I didn't want to focus too much on Excel here because, as you probably know, 2 weeks ago, we did an entire 60-minute webinar on Excel life hacks or tips and tricks. And if you visit our blog at dynamicconsulting.com, you can see information about that, and David will help get those recordings out to folks. So let's go ahead and get started with our Office 365 tips. I don't have a towel on my head, but I am nice and comfy here in my home office. I hope you are as well. So let's go ahead and get started with some Microsoft Word tips. Now, I have a Word document here. All I really did was grab something off of the home page of Wikipedia. It just happens to be about Henry Conwell. No idea who Henry is. Sure, he's a good chap. But I just copied and pasted that in there. And I want to talk about some of the things that I tend to take for granted, but I wanted to share them. So as the day gets older and my eyes get weaker, I often use the zoom here down to bottom to make that larger and easier for me to read. What I wanted to share is you hold the control button on your keyboard. So I'm holding that control button, and using the scrolling wheel on my mouse, I can easily zoom in and zoom out. Now, what I really like about this is if I zoom out enough, I get into a multi-page view. And if I'll come right out, and I can jump from one page to the other. So instead of scrolling through 7 pages, maybe I could come very easily and jump down to the bottom one. Another thing you could do with this while I'm talking about it is in this bottom area of your Word document, where I was using the magnifier, you can use the focus mode. And I recently discovered this. I believe it's been there quite a while, but this really helps me when I'm reading documents. And if I click in that focus mode, you see it gets rid of all of this distraction around that black background, at least to me, makes it seem like I'm reading a book, maybe a little more focused on the white and black content of the document. To get out of that, just hit the escape key on your keyboard. So that's just a little bit about control zoom and just zoom in general. David and I were working together on a project, and I happened to use this format painter tip, and I promised him I would get it in today because I really, again, it's one of those things that I tend to take for granted, but maybe it'll help you out. So if we have this first line here and we want to make it a little larger, we'll just use the font increase, and maybe we'll click it, make it bold, and italicize that. Now, if I wanted to do the same thing for line 2, line 3, line 4, and 5, now there are other ways using styles, but you can highlight this work that you just did, click on the format painter, and you notice my cursor then switches to a little paintbrush instead of the arrow. So whatever I highlight then is going to grab the formatting of what I just did. Now, my mouse went back to the normal cursor. So really, you probably knew about Format Painter, but did you know that if you double click on that, it actually keeps that, and your mouse will stay a paintbrush, so you can use that over and over again without having to jump back up. To turn it off, you can either hit the escape key or just hit Format Painter again. That's double click on the Format Painter to use that over and over again. I love that. It's really, really helpful. If you're like me, you've probably done this. You want to remove something, so you start hitting the backspace, and then you're backspacing all along. What I wanted to show you was a nice tip. It's control backspace. And I'm on my keyboard. I know you don't see it, but holding the control button and then tapping backspace at the same time will backspace and remove the entire word, which can save you a little bit of effort. That's control backspace. What else do we got? Remove unwanted formatting. So there's, if you notice in here, let me zoom in. I'll use my control scroll wheel. This line is a little bit larger, so we could use the format painter. I copied and pasted this in, but if I highlight this and I choose remove format, that's this A with the eraser, you see that Word got rid of all of that extra formatting and made everything consistent. So if you have a lot of maybe this works in other applications too. A lot of these tips are cross office, so I'm showing you this in Word, but the Zoom and some other things, they all work like in PowerPoint and Excel and Outlook even. But if you've ever been in Outlook and you've got one bullet that's large, or in PowerPoint, one bullet that's larger than the other, use the clear formatting and get it back to a nice consistent. So let me show you that again. You see, and I'll just remove it and gets rid of it. That's clear formatting. You can also use the keyboard shortcut Control Space, which is actually what I use more than the mouse. Also multi-click to select more. We probably know that if we click somewhere, it's identifying the location. But if I were to double click, I can select the entire word. Now that that's selected, I can drag it around. Maybe not so applicable in a Word document for a word, But if I wanted to move this entire paragraph, I can keep clicking a third time, triple click, getting a little crazy, but triple click, which apparently is difficult to say. I can now click and drag and move that paragraph, which is pretty cool. So yeah, sure, you can just drag here and highlight it that way, but the quick triple click is nice as well. Also want to show you here, I may have this in the slide deck already, but if you have something in a list, and this is true again for Excel or PowerPoint, and you want to just simply move this, if I hold Alt, Shift, and then move my arrow key down, it'll move it and renumber it for me. So I'm Alt, Shift, and the up and down arrow key is moving that item in my list. And mine is not renumbering actually because I think that's just hard keyed numbering, not bulleting numbering, right? So there's no bulletin, but that's Alt Shift with the arrow key to move it. What else? So if you're familiar with tracking changes, the change tracker in Word, it's great because if I send this document to someone, and this is under the review tab, and I turn change tracking on, any edits that they make, I can sort of see a log of those and approve or reject or add comments, but you have to turn that on. So imagine a situation where I send my fantastic document here about Henry Conwell to David and he makes some changes and then sends it back to me, but change tracker is not turned on. And now it's really difficult to see what the differences are, but I want to show you something. I've got Word Rocks here, so I'm going to save that and I'm going to use under review compare. And now there are other options here. I'm talking specifically about compare two versions of a document. So I'm going to choose compare and I'm going to find the first one, which I think my original document is this one. And then I'm going to find my second document. So I emailed this to someone, they emailed it back, and I want to compare them. So let me make sure I pick the two different ones. So I picked my original and my revised. And then when I'm done, I can say label the changes with Sean did this, and we'll hit OK. So watch what happens here when this starts to compare. It's pretty cool. We got some revisions on the left margin of our Word application. These are the 15 revisions that the compare has identified. And on the right hand side, sort of in this top and bottom comparison, you see we've got the original doc. And I hear you oohing and ahhing, and that's awesome because I love this too. I'm so glad you do. This is cool. It's going to help you a lot if change tracker is not on, or even if you've just got multiple versions and you want to figure it out. So here's my original, here's my revised. It's not really pointing out on these, it's just showing me those. But if I look over here in my compared document, you'll see that it highlighted this. So inserted that, Sean did this, Sean did this, blame me for everything. If I scroll down, what else did I do? There's some other areas here. You see I added a bullet, I took out some text. So this is not change tracking in its truest sense, but it is a great way to get you there where you need to see the differences between two docs. That is compare documents, compare files. Pretty cool. Love it, love it, love it. Speaking of that insert date, let me go ahead and close this up. I don't need to save that new doc. Inserting date. So if you always have a doc, maybe this isn't the best file for this, but if you want to say today is 4/22/2020 and then save the file, and then tomorrow you open it, you have to change the date in here. But if you want that date to be reflective of the actual date, you can insert a date here. So I'm going to go to, let me check and cheat on my slide here, insert date time. So I'm going to go to insert date time, and I've got some options here, and I don't have multiple languages installed, but some other countries use different formats. We can choose the format of the date we want and choose update automatically, meaning that it's not just this one time. If we just want to drop the date in right now It almost seems silly because those 4 clicks probably are harder than just typing it in. So the update automatically is kind of important, so we can set that. And now that is a date field. Notice that little bit of a gray background. That's a date field. So tomorrow when I open this, it's going to say 4/23. This is great for contract placeholders. I love using it for that. Let's see. Another one that I just recently found, and I love this, is we probably all know how to do find and replace throughout pretty much every application known to man. But find and replace for this text and replace it with that text. But if we want to find some of the background noise that makes our document sloppy, and that's what I call it anyway, if I turn on the show hide, you can see I've got some paragraph markers in here. I've got some extra spaces. Maybe let's see if I tab, there's a tab. And if I want to get rid of some of those, especially when you're copying and pasting, this is really great tip for when you copy and paste from a PDF. If you've ever done that, you have to like delete and then space and then enter to get the formatting right kind of thing. This is great for that. So you highlight what you're going to do, Control H for replace, and down here, right here, it's going to say more. So you click more and then go into special, and then you can choose those. See, there's the paragraph character. So it puts that in there and I can replace it with something. And if I choose replace all, of course, I made a mistake in mine, but you get the idea. Those specials are really cool. And makes it easier to clean up documents, especially when you copy paste. Let me know what other ways you might use that. Dictionary auto replace. So your system uses a single dictionary. So when you make these changes and you add something to a dictionary in PowerPoint, it will cross over and use that same dictionary in Word, but you can have your own autocorrects. So if you, let me turn that off. So if you want to type, well, let's just see. If you want to type in, what do I misspell? Somebody might misspell my name and put it like that. I wouldn't do that, but if I wanted to, I could have an autocorrect fix that for me. So let's go into File, Options, and then Proofing, Autocorrect. That's a few steps now. I have the slide here showing, whoops, spoiler. I had the slide here showing File, Options, Proofing, Autocorrect. So we're going to go into autocorrect. You've got so many options here. By the way, if something autocorrects and it shouldn't, if you accidentally did that, this is where you come in and you fix it. So WTN, and there's the replace. So what I want to do is add something new here. I'm going to say, if somebody types in Sean like this, make it Sean like that. And I can add that. Now that is in there, and I can say OK. And so now if I type Sean, it will replace it. If I have one in here, if I type Sean, you see it will recommend if it wants to put my last name. That's autocorrect. That was a simple replace for me, but some folks use, proper nouns get replaced inadvertently, and you can update those. That's the dictionary available in all the Office applications, which is pretty cool. So that's a little bit about Word. Next, we're going to talk about PowerPoint, and which is a little interesting because I'm presenting on a PowerPoint, but I'm going to go and let's open up a new PowerPoint, and I'll get a blank PowerPoint up for us here, and I'm just going to show some tips that I have in PowerPoint. So design ideas. We're just going to start with a blank canvas here, and let's see what we have up first. So first things first, I think this is pretty cool. Now I'm presenting to you in a special mode that allows me to see my taskbar. So if you've ever been at a presentation or a conference or a webinar and they use the Alt tab and you see all the windows pop up and you kind of get, webinar drunk from all the zoom in, zoom out. If you use that method, like I am here, which is under slideshow, setup slideshow, browse in an individual window. That's what leaves the taskbar available, but most folks do presented by a speaker, which is full screen. So I'm going to zoom down to, where was I? Right here, and I'm going to present from there. So if I hit F1, Now there's a screenshot there, so this will be a little trippy. There's my window to give me all the shortcuts that I can use while I'm in a full window mode. A couple of them that I like is I can use the B button to blacken the screen, so it just goes black. Maybe I want to get everyone's attention for a minute. I can use the W, which will blank out the screen, again, maybe for attention purposes. But I also like this, so I can use my arrow keys to go back a slide or forward a slide. If I hit a slide number like 7 and then hit enter, it'll jump to that slide number. But this is the one I like. So on this slide, maybe you can't read that. Maybe I'm in a big room. If I hit the plus button, it's going to zoom in. And then I can use my arrow keys to move around on the zoomed in slide. And the minus sign gets us back out. That's awesome. I absolutely love that. That's a nice little PowerPoint tip there. Those couple there. The other ones are also, well, I'm going to go back to kiosk mode or individual window mode and browse from there. Okay, so what else do we got? So align. I've done this myself. I'm going to come into PowerPoint and I'm just going to add a shape. Let's pick a nice shape here. So here's a shape. And I'm going to add another shape. I'll go to insert shape and another one right here. And I'll make that one yellow and maybe kind of get them aligned. Now I can move my mouse and you see the red lines pop up to kind of tell me, hey, you're matching size. But what if I wanted to do some stuff like align this multiple things, and we can highlight these and go to align here in the arrange. So we can align them to the left. We can align them to the right, crisscross. We can align them center. We can align them to the bottom. Now that would overlap them. We can distribute them horizontally to make them, yeah, even across the horizon or the horizontal plane in our slide deck, or we can do that vertically as well. So we don't have to guess. We can use align to get those where we need to be. And I love that. I love using that, especially if you're making process flows, maybe not just an orange and blue box, but I really, really like that. Transitions, speaking of presenting, so if you have, I'm just going to copy this slide and paste it here. So maybe you knew that was possible, but some folks may not. So you can just Control-C to copy the slide and then insert it and Control-V to paste. I'm going to get rid of that one, but I have two here. And so I'm going to go to, what am I on here? Transitions. We'll talk about animations in a minute, but transition is the effect from one slide to the other. So if we click on transitions on the slide we want to transition to, we can choose one of these cool effects. Some of these are really cool. I like the fall over. That's what it would look like from one to the other. The drape, nice drape. And you could change these. So now I have the drape there. If I click on this, I can switch it to the right or the left. I don't think that changed anything. The curtain's cool too. Maybe a little slow. You could speed it up just by coming over to the timing and making it quicker. So now it opens a little quicker. The wind is cool too. Kind of blows one off and leaves you with the other one. That's pretty cool. Animations, liven them up a little bit. Don't overdo it, but keep your audience focused with transitions. Now, one that I wanted to highlight is Morph. So what I really like about Morph, it's not terribly new, but it's not an old transition, but Morph is really cool. So I've got this slide that I copied to this slide. So I've got duplicate images. So on my second slide, if I say I wanted to morph, I'm just going to click the transition to morph, and let me just go ahead and move this blue one over, and I'll move the yellow one over, and maybe I'll just make them a little smaller. I held the Control key down to get them both, and I'll resize them to make them a little smaller like that. So because the second slide is selected as morphed, and PowerPoint recognizes that these are copies, when I transition from the one to the other, it will morph and make it look like I moved them. So I'm just going to use the left arrow key to go back. That's pretty, 2 squares, no big deal, but it is really cool. So imagine, use your creativity there and imagine what you could do. So let's do a little bit of that. So I'm just going to take this one again, and I'm going to paste it here. So that's easy. So we'll make that morph again. So now when we do it, we've got a large going to small and then going back to the large. Pretty cool. Then let's copy this again. And maybe now we'll take these two, we'll click with control and we'll turn them just a little bit. We'll turn them like that. And we'll make our transition morph, which it is because we copied. We'll do it again, just copy it down. Same thing. We'll turn it again. You get where I'm going. Let's keep going though. And we'll do another quarter turn. And then lastly, we'll put them back. Alrighty, so now we have this morph using the morph, and we'll go slideshow from beginning. So there we go. I'm using my space bar. Slide one, slide two, slide three, slide 4, 5, 6, and 7, and 8. Now I'm using my mouse click or my arrow to do that, but what I could do is I could highlight all of these and say, I'm using the shift key on my keyboard, highlighted from one slide to the other. And what I can do under transition is instead of a mouse click, I can uncheck that and let this just be advanced right away. So after no seconds, it'll go to the next slide. Let's go from the beginning and just a single click, no hands. There it goes on its own. And I could be talking, I could be, using visuals with my hands and really getting my point across, while probably not boxes spinning is the best example, but I wanted to show you some of that cool ways, a cool way that you could use Morph. If you remember during the beginning of our presentation, I actually used some Morph in there. So let me do one more thing here. Now those are similar blocks. Those are similar shapes. We'll move this over here and we'll get rid of the yellow. So we'll get to the blue box and I'll copy that, and I'm just going to go and I'm going to change the shape here. So let's go to format shape, and we'll change the shape here to something, let's see, a cloud. There we go. And we'll put a cloud on here, and we'll move that down here and get rid of the blue square. So now they're different shapes. Here's my block, there's the cloud. If I make this morph, and I'll come back to this one and I'll just go from this one, and I go to the next one, you see nothing really happened, just went away kind of quick. So what we need to do, a little trick here, is with Alt F10 on the slide deck, will pop up the selection pane. If I click on the square, I want to rename this. I'm just going to rename it, but the key here is to put 2 exclamation points. So I'll say new item 1 and copy that. And I'll go to the other slide, click on the item I want to morph to, double click this and put that same name. That's telling PowerPoint they're the 2 that I want to morph. So now if I come back here and I say from that slide, now it'll morph to the cloud. Pretty cool. So just use your creativity, have a little bit of fun, and morph animation or transition is really, really cool. So that's a bit about morph. We like to use photos, at least I do, a lot in our slide decks. Helps grab attention. So let's use something cool. Here's a puppy picture. Now design idea is going to pop up. We'll close that for now. We'll close our selection pane. But let's say this is not quite right. Now I've seen folks do this where they add a shape. They'll add a shape here. They'll fill it white. They'll make the border white. And that's their way to kind of crop this photo. Actually, years ago, I used to do that before I knew this feature was in here. But if I click on the photo, the picture, and go to picture format, I've got a crop option here. So I could just crop. It will give me the ability to make this the size that I want. When I'm finished, hit enter or click out of it. And now that picture is cropped. So let me undo that. And I want to show you something else cool about this, because you can crop to a shape. So if I wanted this to be cropped to what we could do a cloud. We could crop it to, oh, by the way, when you do crop it to a shape, Notice the click to add title words there. It isn't just making that white, it literally is cropping it to that shape. So that's pretty cool. Let me do one more. Let's do, how about a heart? There we go. Now what we could do is also add a little flare to that, and we'll just grab some formatting from the picture format, and then we'll crop it to that shape. There we go. So then we get a nice little, oh, that's not my dog, although I would probably take it in a heartbeat. Okay, that's cropping an image, cropping a photo. A little bit of instructions here in the slide deck. The next one I want to talk about is animations. You probably use these. I love animations. I think they help keep focus. So you can have your text or whatever it is, highlight it, and we'll just have this bounce. We'll click bounce, and then on mouse click, that's how that comes in. We can have this one come in as maybe split. To see what you've just done, we can turn on the animation pane. So item 2 is this. That's my first one. All I need to do if I want to reorder that is just click on that and drag it up. Now you see this is set to 1 and that is set to 2. So if we go to slideshow from this slide, mouse click, that's pretty cool. A lot of options in there. Animations have the green are entry. So if I click that down arrow, let me show that again. This expand arrow, we have entrance, emphasis, and exit, and these fun ones that are motion paths. But we can also click to have something exit. So as we move to the next topic, exit animations are pretty cool too. Don't just use the entrance. Don't overdo it either. I think there's a line there, but really, really cool to do that. A lot of different options. Check them out. As you highlight it and you click on one, you can see what they are. And you can change the options. So if we look at that one, we can do, it was defaulted to Object Center. We could have it change. Pretty cool stuff there. What else? What else? Marquee animations. So this one is fun. You may have noticed on the intro for our webinar today that I had a marquee running. So I'm just going to copy this down. Here's my little puppy. And what I need to show you is I'm going to insert a text box. So there's a text box, and I'm going to say, I love this dog. And then I'm going to use animation to make some magic here. So I'm going to have this animate, and I'm going to have it fly in. Now fly in, you see defaults from bottom to the top, but I want marquee to come from the right to the left. So if I go to effect options, I'll say from the right. So now you see it's zooming across from the right. But a little trick here is we can slow that down. That was only ½ second. So we're going to slow that down to, let's just say 4 seconds. Let it take a little bit longer. But I'm going to zoom out. Remember that control scroll wheel? I'm going to zoom out and look around my slide. So I've got all this space around this slide, and you can use that to your advantage. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to slide it off the slide. Now when I preview that, let's take a look. Just scroll across and go off the slide. Now to get that to repeat, all we have to do is click on this and go to animations. Look at my animation pane. Oops, I don't even actually have to do that. Yeah, I do. Sorry. Go to my animation pane. I'm going to go to the options. There's other ways to get here as well. And in the animation or timing, pardon me, I'm going to choose repeat until the end of the slide. So I've said now, OK, let's loop that. So we'll do a slideshow from the current slide and let that loop. So once it gets off the screen into that spot that I picked, it's going to start over. That's one way to do it. You can real easily, though, just copy that and paste it. Control C, Control V, and I'm going to put it right on top of itself. And I have 2 of them. So I've got one animation and another animation. And on the second animation, I'm going to delay it for half the time that the first one ran for. And I'm also going to say, let it start with the previous. So they're both going to start at the same time. except the second one is on, whoops, I thought it was on a 2-second delay. The second one is on a 2-second delay. They both take 4 seconds. Pretty easy. Let's go to the slide. Now when we do that, 2 seconds in, we get it repeating and both are set to repeat. So it looks like we have ourselves a very, very cool marquee. That's PowerPoint. Very, very cool stuff. Use your imagination. Last one here, I think I wanted to show about how to be cool with a table. So imagine I'm doing a presentation. Here's my table. I did a lot of work crunching numbers in Excel. Here it is, kind of a little bit of a, I don't know, it's not as impressive or powerful because I'm not animating it at all. So let's go back. I'm going to leave this. I'm going to jump over here and create a new slide. And I'm going to paste that table into my slide. And I just pasted it with Control P. Let me close these up. Just like words and just like photos, I can animate this table. So I'm going to go to animation. And I'm going to say fly in. Okay, so the whole table flew in. You with me? Click my whole table. Still not quite good enough. If I break this down a little bit more, I have my table selected and I go to Effect Options. Look way down here at the bottom. It recognizes, PowerPoint recognizes this is a table, and I can have this animate by series or by category, by series, element series or category. So in my case, I'm going to do it by series. That brought all three in. Let's take a look at that. There's my background. I could talk about what we're going to see, or I talk about the sales amount by person, who did better, David, Andy, or Sean. Get everyone's attention, and then you bring in the data. Now we could go a little further and come back out into PowerPoint, highlight this. We're going to go back into animations, and we're going to do this by category. There we go. Now we're getting somewhere. So let's take a look at that. We're presenting. Here's what we're going to see. Da 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 da. Who did better? Here's David's performance. You could talk about some things David did to meet those performance goals. Here's Andy, and here's Sean. Sorry, Andy, it wasn't a good month for you, my friend. But you get the idea how much more alive this table looks and feels to your audience. I hope that that is helpful for you. Let's take a look at what's next. We are going to talk about some Outlook tips and tricks. So let's get into it. And a little bit of a fun chart here, the email anxiety compared to the number of days that you're on vacation. You know how that feels. That inbox keeps growing and growing and growing. Well, there are ways, pardon me while I sip my coffee. There is no Bailey's in the coffee. It's a little early. But there's a lot of truth in this. The inbox gets fuller and fuller, and how do we handle it? So some of the tips I'm showing you today are basically about that. They're about how to manage your inbox a little bit more effectively, at least the way that I try to. It's far from perfect. There are lots of options out there, zero inbox, etc. But these are just some things that I pick up along the way that I find helpful. So if you're not familiar, let me drag Outlook over into the window here. So if you're not familiar with the ability to show folders or inboxes in favorites. So in Outlook, you've got the favorites panel and then your list of inboxes. So just simply right clicking and choosing show in favorites will take that folder and put it into your favorites. If you're like me, you might have a lot of things in your favorites listed. It's almost counterproductive, but good things in your favorites can really be helpful. So that's one way so that you're not scrolling through a long list of folders. What else? I like this. I actually use this. So, excuse me, out of the box, you get your desktop alerts in the bottom right-hand corner. Maybe it makes a little sound, but the reality is if you get hundreds of emails a day, do you really need hundreds of notifications? And the bottom line is you're probably not going to find value in those notifications for many reasons, but one is email, in my opinion, is something that isn't best serving you to live in. Rather you control your attention to the inbox rather than the inbox control its attention to you. I like to recommend, or at least for me, is I go into File Options, Mail, and turn off that desktop alert. And why do I do that? because I'm crazy. No, what I like to do is I say, okay, turn them off globally. That's what this option is. And then what I do is I go in and I find a specific person that I need to be notified about, or people that I need to be notified about. So when I get an email from our president or David or anyone that I need to be notified, and those notifications on my desktop make sense, I create a rule for those things. Because I turned it off globally, it will still show the desktop notification if I set up a rule to be notified. Another thing I like to do, a couple ideas when it comes to notifications, is and these rules, is if you have someone super priority that you don't want them to get lost in your inbox, there's a couple things you could do. One thing you could do is use this send an alert to mobile device when I get a message from someone. I use my mobile email address, so my cell phone number. I'm an AT&T customer, and that I get a text alert when I get an email from my boss, for example, because I don't want those to get lost in my inbox. There are other ways to do it, but that's just one. So turn off the notifications globally, but then define notifications for what and who is important. Because after all, we all know our inbox is flooded with so many things. The reply all mess that can put you into a downward spiral rather quickly. Reply all, reply all, reply all. I've got some tips about that. You know, you've got your Amazon order shipments, your LinkedIn updates that you don't want anyone to see. And then there's this small amount of information in your inbox that's actually important. This is true for everyone. I'm convinced this is true for everyone. Maybe not proportionally, but compared to what's important compared to what you receive is such a small amount, and the idea behind this is to help surface them to the top for you. So one thing I like to talk about is conditional formatting. So let's say we talked about that mobile notification, but maybe I want to see something different. Oh, Alexa thought I was talking to her. Maybe you want to see your inbox look a little differently based on who it's from. So here, based on the sender of the email, I have this conditional format set to make it a hot pink. Why? Because it's easy to show on the demo. So really all that is if we go into view in this view settings, and I've got slides for this for you all afterward, but view settings, and then conditional formatting. These are the ones that are out of the box. What an unread email looks like, you know, because the unread email has more color to it. What if it's expired or overdue? So all we have to do is create a new one. And I actually have this here from Sean. So we go add, give it a name. And then what we need to do is give it what do we want it to look like? So I picked something pretty bizarre, and then I'll pick its color and then hit OK. That's great, but what email messages should look like that? So then that's where we get into the condition. You have 3 tabs of conditions here, so you can say if it's from a certain person. And let me back up and just go into the one that I have here. So in my condition, it's saying if it's from my work email address, and what it's going to do is make it this color. So when I come back out here and I put this in, let's see if I can get this email to send fast enough. This is my real inbox, so I just sent an email from my work email. This is my personal email. So when that comes in, now your email inbox probably looks a whole lot more flooded than that, but you see, if that was mixed in with other inbox items that didn't have that formatting, it would jump out. It would stand out. I absolutely love that. So what else can we do with conditional formatting? Well, there's the instructions I promised on getting that in there. The idea behind that is to help you focus. Another way to focus is to use search folders. So search folders, if I come into folder, it's interesting, it's not under search, but if I come into folder, you see I have this option for new search folder. So what I can do is I can say, hey, show me all the unread mail or mail that's flagged. But if I come down to the bottom, I can create a custom search folder. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a custom search folder for everything that I received today. So I'm just going to call it today. And I'm going to say my criteria is going to come over to advanced. I'm going to choose the received, today, and then add it. So now I have a folder that dynamically searches and looks at everything that I received today. If I delete it from here, it will move it to my deleted inbox, but it will still show because this was received today. Pretty cool. So that could be received yesterday, or maybe it's all the emails received from a certain person, all of the criteria options that you can think of by using search folders rather than manually moving them. That's really cool. You can also do that by going into view and looking at expand and collapse if you're searching by date. So here's by folder. If I switch by date, you see I've got everything today. I only have a few in here, but note that tip. If I wanted to group them by who they were from, I could do that. It's defaulted by date, but nice and easy if you ever need to search and see all the emails from a certain person or on a certain day. That's using search folders. Pretty cool stuff. Slides there for you to check out to set it up for yourself. And then you can go ahead and add that search folder to your favorites. Add to favorites. Helps keep you a little focused. So some other things with that search that maybe just some ideas is to create a search folder for email that you are specifically listed in the to section or specifically listed in the CC section, because in my mind, that brings a lower priority compared to when I'm listed as a to participant in the email, and even more so on the blind carbon copy. So that it'll help you if you have those set up as searches, know which emails you have to pay more attention to quicker. Speaking of search, under file options, you can choose to include or exclude messages from your deleted folder. You may have a preference to include them. Like I do, mine was set to exclude them, and I prefer to see them even if I delete them. So that's how you can change that setup. Little tip about out of office reply. We all get them, we all use them, helps notify folks. But I wanted to point out a couple things about this. So first thing I want to point out is when you go into automatic replies, you have the option to create one for your organization and one for outside your organization. If you are, depending on your role, you may want to consider setting up a template so you can use rules and create a template, but make sure, just my tip to you, do with it what you like, that your out of office has some sort of call to action or saving next steps for the original sender. If you are out, what can they do to get the kind of help that they need in your absence? So many times I see folks just saying, I'm out, I'm at the beach, I'm drinking Mai Tais, but who do I need to contact? Now I know we all have email on our phone, and more often than not, we respond to them that way. But just a tip on out of office. So just a little bit of fun on this. The real reason carbon copy is used, that's why it becomes a lower priority. I thought this was pretty funny. Just thought I would share it. The point I'm trying to articulate here is that there is a difference between identifying someone as a carbon copied participant versus the to, and as a recipient, I should have the privilege to treat it with that little bit lower priority. So when sending it, make sure that folks are identified on the proper line. So also wanted to mention to use the @ sign. This Microsoft calls mentioning, and so I'll create a new email if you haven't seen this already, and I'll just use the @ sign, and it'll start putting in, and I'll start typing, so I actually can click that and it will mention me. Now what that does is it automatically moves me to the to line that I was mentioned, and then when I receive this email, I get a little bit different of a notification in my inbox with a little @ sign, making it a little easier. To me, when someone mentions me, it means specifically I am called to action on this email. And what I like to do in conjunction with that is use a conditional formatting. So if I come into view settings, conditional formatting again, oops, I'm on the, let me go to the inbox so that I do this correctly. There we go. Go to conditional formatting, and I actually set up a mentioned rule. So my condition or advance is if mention is true, it actually will do other things as well. So I make my color different if I'm mentioned as well. So I'll send that off. And then instead of it being just blue, I should get that and it look a little fuchsia, I guess is what the color is there. So that's another great way to handle mentions. I think I have a conflict there on mine because I actually have two that have the same sender in there, but that's okay. Let's see. That was the mention. Attachments. If you attach attachments in your email and you get the pop-up that says, do you want to attach it as a link or an attachment? You can set that default. And by default, Outlook says, ask me how I want to attach every time. But if you always want to attach as a cloud file or a link or attach them as true copies, you could change that default option in File, Options, General, and then way down at the bottom under Advanced Attachment Options. So check that out as well. We already talked about autocorrect in dictionary, but I wanted to point that out. It carries over in Outlook as well. So be careful with autocorrect. It can help you, it can hurt you. Just make sure that you have it set that works best for you. Same way in Outlook as in Word. So I'm not going to really dig into that. We've already talked about it. Reply all. I promised I had a tip for this. Reply all emails. First of all, they are not fun. Maybe they're appropriate most times, but if you're talking about the football game or something to that effect, and it just doesn't really need to be in your inbox, there's an option called ignore. So when you click on that message and then click on ignore, that conversation will get ignored moving forward. So you won't have them pop up in your inbox, desktop notifications. If it's somebody you have a special notification from, those things will no longer happen. So that's pretty cool to take advantage of if it's that kind of email that you know you're just never going to need to be a part of. So check that out, and for that, you're welcome. I use that a lot. That might help you from time to time. Don't just choose ignore from like your boss's email or anything. But quick parts are another cool thing. Predetermined text, so you can go into insert, highlight some text that you've already typed, go to insert, quick parts, and create that. So you can reuse that from over and over and over again. When you're creating emails. So if I were to type in something here and then highlight it, I go to insert, quick parts, and I can add this to quick part. I can call it something. Now, next time I have another email, I can just go back to quick parts and click it and it'll use it. Now, obviously you could put in instructions or links or whatever it is that you use often. Quick parts can be super, super helpful. Check that out. Getting close to the top of the hour. I want to be mindful of time, but I've got some cool stuff to share here in a minute. This is funny to me. So if you are typing an email and you want to, you often proofread it, or you have a very important message to get across, I like recommending that you use the speak aloud or read aloud. Built right within Outlook, rather than reading it with your eyes. Read aloud, and it actually drops inflection in there. It kind of helps you recognize the tone of your email a little bit more, and for me, it makes it easier for me to catch whether or not my message may be misinterpreted. That's read aloud. I find that very, very helpful. So check that out. You can have more than one instance of Outlook opened on your computer. Maybe this is not a great thing, but I love doing this because I'll open it twice. I'll just go right click on it and choose Outlook again, and I'll set one to be my calendar and the other one to be my inbox. So I always sort of have a live calendar view on one monitor. I love doing that. Just thought I would share that. And then Find Time. Find Time is a Microsoft add-in. So when we come into Outlook, we can go to Get Add-in on the home ribbon, and then we'll type Find Time. Now, Find Time is an add-in that you can use. Install that. It's a Microsoft app. And what that does is anyone who is in the email, you can drop that into the body of the email, and they can click a link and vote for what time makes the most sense to have a meeting. So instead of several emails back and forth, are you good Thursday at 2? That's Eastern instead of Central, and Find Time can really, really help because it does look back at your actual calendar and block those times out for you. Check that out. Last Last area here, I have just two simple but fun Excel tips that I wanted to share with you all. I love that meme there. I get lost in that circular error myself sometimes, but I wanted to share these with you. We did do a whole series on Excel tips, and these were just two that I didn't include in there that I wanted to share. So transposing data. So if we have a data set here and we really need it to be unpivoted, if you will, we can highlight that. Oop, let me use Control Zoom in. Works everywhere. I can highlight that, right click, copy, or Control C. And then wherever I want to paste the new, I'm just going to click here and go to right click, paste special. Now this right here, you see transpose, it kind of gives us a preview. That is the icon to transpose the data, but you can also come into paste special and down here in the bottom right, if those icons are a little tricky to select. So when we paste that, now instead of it being pivot, we have it across the top. I love that. That's a simple example. This is a great tip if you ever need to do VLOOKUPs. Although, speaking of VLOOKUPs, if you use VLOOKUPs, there's a much better way. Check out our video on Excel life hacks for the XLOOKUP function. But that's about transposing data. Pretty cool. Hope that's helpful. And then the last one, I learned this from my friend Belinda years ago, is about sorting columns. So we all know how to sort these. Let me zoom in. I keep forgetting. We all know how to sort rows. So I have these rows. I go to data, sort, and then I'll say sort by row 4. There we go. And I sorted there. Now what we can do is here I've got my list of months and they're out of order. So all I did was a little trick is I came up here and I put in the month number in this row. And I'm just going to highlight this whole thing. And I'm going to go to sort. And then I'm going to go to options. And I'm going to sort. Yours is going to say top to bottom. Oops, I messed up. When I sorted this before, it was sorting the wrong way. There we go. You probably were saying, hey, it didn't really sort. There we go. There, now it's sorted. Okay, so that's the way the normal behavior is. But what we're going to do is highlight this, and we're going to go to sort, go to options, and switch that from column to left to right, which is going to be our row. So sort by which row? We're going to say row 1, because that's where my marker is, smallest to largest, and watch what happens when I hit OK. Everything in those columns are sorted and lined up by my marker. They're put into the correct order. Instead of me doing this, insert, cut cells, and all that mess, real easy to do. I'll do it one more time, highlight it, sort, whoops, sort. Where would we be without the undo button? Options, left to right, choose the row that I want to sort by, and boom, just like that. Now I can get rid of my marker row, and that's an easy way to sort columns. So everyone, thank you so very much for joining us. We are at the top of the hour. Feel free to enter to win an Amazon gift card we're giving away. You can use this QR code to pop up our survey link. Also, the survey link is here. You'll get this in email form when we deliver the slide deck and any other files. I'll send all those other files that I have as well. We love to hear your feedback, so it's really helpful. Let us know what other things you'd like to learn about in our Learn from Home While You Work from Home series, completely free. I hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you so very much. Be safe and be well.